Desert to the Dunhuang caves to the other edge of the Silk Road. And in a city like Xi'an, thousands, literally 10, 20,000 people. 10, 20,000 people in the morning from 6:30 to 9, different times, half an hour, 45 minutes. They come, there's no teacher. They just come in groups of 5s and 10s and 15s and 20s, and that's what they practice. Without there being a teacher, maybe there's somebody has a boom box and somebody puts in the equivalent of 50 cents. So coming back, I think one central point you made that we should not be in downward dog yoga, right? Yeah. That in downward dog yoga, we shouldn't have somebody come up and tell us what to do, which point is well taken in the context of it being a business. However, there is a distinction. There is and Scott, forgive me if I'm repeating, but you said recursive. A favorite expression of people like me is the delusion. Light cigarettes, light beer, light yoga. And that has taken root in the last 20, 15, 20 years. People like me working in the SS stop the Easternization of the West. It's the diminution. But having said that, there are pockets far, 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 far more authentic in this room itself. Far more authentic what you guys have been doing compared to what it was 5 years ago. A person like me in the Vedic Center, we're having this Saturday Yog Nidra, just by word of mouth. 4 sessions, and we've had about 1,100 people come in, but not one of us is a teacher. 1,100 people, word of mouth. So the distinction has to be in terms of not to impose standards on others who wish to make it into something which it isn't, but not to shun it either, but to make a distinction. And I think, in my opinion, from watching the sidelines, what 2 or 3 of you have done is remarkable in the city of Toronto, that you have made a distinction, shied away, or let the others be seen differently. Where with 30,000 people, 40,000 people assembling at the yoga, there's an institution down on Front Street, but you've made it into a little bit more towards authenticity. And I think there's nothing wrong in that, because it is not going to die away, as a person at the CBC said this evening, that, look, it's a fad. I'm worried about 20% rise in the Lululemon today, but what if the fad runs out? Hula hoop ran out as a fad. Not the Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, Vedanta. They've been there for 5,000 years. They've been there for 50,000 years. Thank you. So I applaud. In essence, what I'm saying, applaud what you did. Okay, now I have 2.
So in response to what Joy said and what Chandra was just saying, the setting of standards, for me, is about who gets to set standards. I'm still not exactly sure what standards are and how they would come about or be applied, but at the moment it seems to me quite obvious that the free market is setting the standards right now, and that it is the business of yoga that is determining the future of yoga. And I'm very happy to hear what Downward Dog is doing, and I'd be very happy to hear that more studios are taking time to reflect upon their teacher trainings, just because in doing so we're questioning who is setting the standards, right? And if we never come to an agreement on any kind of universal or uniform standards, but that each of us reflect on the standards that we're setting, whether it be studio culture or in our particular traditions or lineages, At the very least, this would take it out of the hands of Lululemon, right? Which, whether we recognize it or not, is in many ways setting the standards. The other question I have is, when we talk a lot about standards, there's this feeling for me that we're coming at it from a very conservative place, which is we feel that something is happening in the yoga community, that it's getting out of control, that maybe, that free market is in some ways driving yoga in a way that we don't want it to go, and that we'd like to put the brakes on it, and that standards are going to be those brakes, right? Or that they're going to limit the flow or change it in some way. And I worry a lot about this because yoga has always been evolving and reacting to the times and the culture that it finds itself in. And that yoga needs to be free-flowing. And that if we're going to determine standards, that we should be very careful that those standards don't try to freeze yoga or hold it at a certain place that we, even if it's a democratically, formed board or group, says that it is at the time, but rather those standards become something that allow for a continual reflection of what yoga means in the time they're living in. And back to my original point, so long as it is yogis that are determining the standards of yoga and not any other outside influences or forces. It's a quiet group this time. It must be the cold December night.
Or that we open a number of subjects and then we reach a natural plateau, right? Because where are we actually going to go? Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Davis from Octopus Garden, and I wanted to firstly say thank you for opening this discussion. I think it's great, and I only regret that I wasn't able to make the last meeting. I wanted to reflect on something Joy had said, because I think that there seems to be this evolving trend of where teacher training was and still is certainly a way that people can deepen the rigor of practicing and learning the various subjects of yoga, not just asana or not just the practice. And it seems that there is a kind of a distinction that's naturally forming between a vocational type training and a personal development type training. And I think this is personally something that's really interesting and really worth kind of opening up in terms of the just the context of the discussion, because I agree that in terms of why people get into the training, that it seems like there is this natural divide where in order to learn anything more or to go deeper into one's practice, that they're taking teacher training, but then it's sort of, it seems that maybe the terms and the expectations and the objectives of these types of trainings need to be better explored and discussed, so that, and I think it would clear up some of the confusion around, what are the professional goals versus what are the personal goals. So I just thought maybe that could be something added to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think what's particularly muddy for us is that there's, for most of us, these have overlapped. I mean, our vocational goals have always been personal development goals. I think that's probably true for everybody in the room. And it's hard for us to separate them out. I wanted to comment on something that Scott said, which was, you know, as we begin to speak about standards being pressured by notions of standardization, regulation coming in from governmental agencies, you know, and requiring perhaps, you know, there being new requirements for insurance standards and so on, that it's natural for us to have kind of like a conservative posture, that things are getting out of control, that we don't like the way things are moving. And I think it's interesting to notice that posture come up, that attitude, that disposition come up. You know, let's slow down, let's grow up, let's become more mature, let's try to all be the best we can be. And you know, there's kind of a finger shaking thing going on, but at the same time. At the same time, when we hear that now teacher training programs and certifications can be offered online, there's no escaping there's like a necessary conservatism, I think, that arises. It's so once again, I'm just raising another dilemma, and I just wanted to appreciate that, yeah, none of us feel comfortable in a conservative role, but when really pressed, and you know, we see what we love be, you know, systematically cheapened over and over and over again, it seems, then it seems like the inner conservative rises. Okay, don't make me choose. Go ahead.
I really appreciate this comment about the difference between these two structures. And I think that the way things are being run in the way that we do encourage people to hop, like, you know, not if we're a studio owner, obviously we want them to stay, but definitely the way that it's marketed, the way that it's presented is, well, you can go here because it's close to work, and then you go here because it's close to home. And I feel like there is a gap in this idea of having a personal development, something that you are committed to, that is, because, you know, I think a lot of people go into teacher training because they're looking for that. They're looking to be able to stay with this teacher or with this practice in a very structured way, more than just I sign up to go to class each Tuesday, but someone is actually with me through this process. And I wonder if part of what we're feeling is, or pushing against, is that we're trying to do two things in one place. And if someone wants to be on a year-long personal development with a specific teacher, can they do that? Have we made space for them to do that? Or is their only option YTT?
Is this one of the specters that we're framing the discussion with? Is it resonant with everybody? Do we feel that regulation is coming? I mean, we have one chiropractor and doctor and physiotherapist and people who work in other healing modalities after another say, you guys are injuring too many people. It's going to come, and sure enough, we are seeing it in various states.